our summer/fall of union activity continues.
And it's just great to see.
It's amazing.
We're big union guys.
Yeah.
We love to see union organizing, and we love to see workers fighting for their rights like this. And it's awesome to see such a massive fixture of the working class really take up arms against the established CEOs like this.
It's really funny. I don't know if there's actually more union activity than normal, or if it's just that I'm paying more attention to political activity than normal.
Yeah, there has been an uptick in union activity, no doubt. It's not as crazy as people seem. Like the amount of workers that are in the United States that are in a union in the private sector hasn't really increased, but there's just been more strikes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Okay.
Which is cool because I think that's the pretext of it. I think how union activity starts growing and unions spread is you get the union striking, you get some positive press in the media, and then people think, okay, maybe I should join a union too.
Sure.
Right.
Okay.
But let's give a little bit of the groundwork here. So what is the UAW fighting for? And what is the UAW? So the United Auto Workers Union is everyone who builds a car in the United States. If you're working for Chrysler, you're working for Ford, you're working for Stellantis. Right? Stellantis.
It's every union worker who builds a car.
Yes.
Yeah.
And these guys have been a fixture of the American working class since the 30s, 40s, 50s. If you think like 1950s middle class, one income, one car, one vacation a year, it's because of the UAW, right?
Yeah. The quintessential.
Exactly. And now they are fighting for better economic conditions, what unions are supposed to do. They recently had an election and elected the new president, Shawn Fain. And Shawn Fain was on the campaign trail running for union president as a militant proponent of really impressive demands. And so this is what they are fighting for. They are fighting for a 36 to 40% wage increase over 4 years, where currently the full-time employees at the big three, that's Chrysler, Ford, and Stellantis, the average full-time employee makes $18 to $32 an hour. They want that increase 36%.
Really quick, I'm going to correct you because Stellantis, you said Ford, Chrysler, Stellantis.
Oh, yeah, please correct me.
Chrysler turned into Stellantis.
Oh.
So it's Ford, Stellantis, and GM.
Thank you, because I would have kept saying it.
Yeah.
Okay. Ford, Stellantis, GM. Awesome. So they want a 36% wage increase until over the next 4 years to 2027. They want an end to the tiered employment system. Now, what is this tiered employment system? This means that newer workers work for lower pay and less benefits, and it encourages these companies to bring on temporary workers so that they can keep them in the lowest tier and not have as many full-time workers. They also want to lower the work week to 32 hours a week instead of 40, which is awesome because that is the beginning of the 4-day work week. You want to talk about how we get a 4-day work week in America? It's the same way we got the 5-day work week through union organizing. Every time you have a Saturday or a Sunday off, thank a union, because the only reason you have that is because union workers striked for it when it wasn't easy. And now they're doing that for the 4-day work week. So these are the three big demands. And well, 40% sounds like a lot, right?
Yeah.
When you're thinking about wage increases, most people get 2% a year, 3% a year. They're asking for 36 to 40% over 4 years. Why is this absolutely justified in my view? So I want to give a little bit of background into what happened over the last decade that makes this strike so genuinely important. So in 2008, these car companies were losing billions of dollars, were hemorrhaging money, were almost edging towards bankruptcy, specifically Chrysler and GM. Ford was kind of not there yet.
Yeah, well, they did go bankrupt.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
GM and Chrysler did.
Yes.
Ford edged near it. And then in order to get money from the federal government, the auto bailout, the unions were in the conversation and the company said, listen, you guys have to make cuts. You guys have to change your demands and change the contract. Otherwise, we're not going to be able to function.
Yeah.
And Congress won't give us the money.
And the union still wanted that. They wanted to make cuts because it still did mean that the unions could save jobs.
Absolutely.
So they introduced these lower tiers that had fewer protections and fewer wage guarantees But the problem is they never went back after 2008.
They never went back. And you can see that in how their salaries have kept up with inflation over time. So the union workers, the UAW said, okay, you know what? We will change our cost of living increases, just cut those out, and we'll deal with that at the next contract. Well, because of that, those who work on the direct production of cars have seen a 20% decrease in their effective wages. Those who work on the parts of cars make 10% less than what they did in 2008. So we see a 10% reduction, a 20% reduction in wages. So when these guys are fighting for a 36, 40% increase, they're actually just going back to the cost of living increases from 2008. They're just trying to make up for all that lost time where they let Ford, GM, Stellantis rake in a ton of money without ever distributing it back to the workforce.
Yeah. And it's also happens to be right in line with the increases to salaries that executives of those same companies collected while decreasing the pay of the manufacturing workers underneath them.
These CEOs are making 350 times what the average worker is making.
Yeah.
That's insanity. In the 1970s, we were like, the CEOs were paid, I think, 40 to 50% times the average worker. Now it's 350. Is that sustainable? Is that right? No, it's not right. And when we see these CEOs of Ford go on the news and talk about how they're in trouble and they try to defend their salaries of $29, $30 million a year, and they're like, when I succeed, everyone succeeds. When the worker succeeds, everyone succeeds. When the worker shows up every day and builds the car, that's what gets you your salary too. This is a partnership. This isn't the CEO making all the value here. And that gets me upset when the CEO goes on TV and thinks that they are the ginormous piece of the puzzle.
See, I have a different perspective because I understand where the CEO is coming from for their own selfish like gain, right? And from all of our own perspectives, we want more for ourselves, for our tribe, for our people, for our families, right? So I don't really blame the CEOs because to me they're just optimizing their own performance within the system that we've set up.
Oh, that's so true.
But this is why the unions are so important because this is how you balance the system. This is why negotiations and striking is the right way to do it because the CEO should be trying to get everything he wants, right? The CEO should be trying to get as much money for himself and his family. That's what we expect. We expect him to want the best quality of life, but there's only a problem if he can act tyrannically over all of his workers and completely siphon any high quality of life from them. If we give the power to the unions, we can create this balance of power so the CEO doesn't have this enormously disproportionately better life and everyone can adequately share in the wealth of the company.
That's beautifully said. And the company currently, let's be very clear, is making so much money. In 2022 and 2023, these companies were making record profits, $37 billion in 2022 and $33 billion in 2023.
Yeah.
Not only were they making so much money, the way that they decided to spend their money also indicates their true priorities. In 2022, $10 billion were spent on stock buybacks. Yep. In 2023, it has been $14 billion. Already.
That's insane. It's and I dug into this a little bit. It's interesting because the graph we have on our screen right now, we kind of see profits. They go up.
It's not already. It's a 2023 forecast.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Never mind. Good to know. They go up a little bit from 2013 to like 2015, 2016. Then they start coming back down a little bit.
For COVID.
Yes. And then in 2020, they bottom, but then they spike enormously.
Massively.
And so what happens is during COVID, there are enormous supply chain issues, right? And cars can't get built as easily. But because of that, companies can raise their prices. They can do it with some kind of rationale behind it, right? So people aren't necessarily mad at the company, or they're not looking at that price and being like, that's absolutely ridiculous. I would never spend that on a car. Instead, they're thinking, it cost more to make this car. So it makes sense that I have to spend more to make this car. The issue is the companies can now capitalize on that being the new norm. And that's what has continued happening. Even as supply chains have normalized, these companies have decided to make fewer low-end cars, to make fewer high-end cars even, so that they're making fewer cars overall, but they're cutting out the low-end cars more and more often. So even though they're producing less and they're selling fewer cars, their profit margins are so much higher that their profit has been spiking. So this is obviously bad for the workers because there are fewer cars to create. And it's kind of compounded this issue where you have more profits, even though it's less work. It's like the definition of rent seeking.
Yeah. And now what's so frustrating is when profits skyrocket at these companies, the workers don't see any of it. And there needs to be some type of balance between the profit a company makes and the benefits a worker earns, because the company makes no profits, the workers don't show up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And sure, the workers have no jobs if the company isn't there, but it's about this mutual relationship that needs to be respected. And right now, these massive car companies are not respecting it. They're not respecting it. And this also comes in a big moment where we're shifting from gasoline combustion engines now over to electric vehicles. And these car companies view this transition as, oh man, this is our chance to get rid of all of these unions.
Yep.
They view this as, oh, we can get rid of all of these expensive guys who have to build combustion engines, and we can go and replace them with the lot easier, lot cheaper tasks of building and assembling batteries, right? This is what the focus is of the unions now. The unions are pulling in the electric vehicle workers into this deal and is ready to make the transition of the UAW from combustion engines into the electric vehicle market, and making sure that this is still a foreseeable path to the middle class that it once was.
Yes, totally. That their rights and their wages are protected.
Exactly. So as I was saying, because there are fewer parts in electric cars, there doesn't necessarily have to be as many workers. So a favorable outcome for the UAW would also give them oh man, hold on. Where am I right now, dude? I'm so pissed.
You're fine.
Ugh. So these companies, okay, here we go.
Yeah.
Oh, geez. These companies are now building these electric vehicles in states that do not have good union protections.
Yep.
They're building them in the South where they have right to work laws. A lot of them are, Tesla is a very famous anti-union company, right?
Yep. And Texas.
Yes, in Texas, Arizona.
Yeah.
So the transition is not becoming union, and they are fighting to keep these jobs in the Midwest where the UAW has more clout. And the UAW is actually pretty mad at Biden for this. They're pretty mad at Biden that Biden gave a ton of money to these companies, or not necessarily to these companies, but he made a lot of electric vehicle incentives in the Inflation Reduction Act without union guarantees. So they're actually kind of pissed that they don't feel like the Biden administration is gracefully handing over the UAW tradition down to the electric vehicle market.
Where are you at on that? What's your take? What's your opinion?
I think Biden could totally have done more.
Really?
Through the IRA. I definitely think. I think that he definitely could have done more. I think his National Labor Relations Board is obviously the strongest that we've seen ever. Biden has come out and he has said that he is basically in favor of the strike. He has repeated Sean Fain's slogan of record profits mean record contracts. He came out and he said that explicitly.
Yeah.
So he's obviously in favor of the UAW movement here. But I think he could have done more on a legislative and policy level. You don't think he could?
Well, my perspective is the dollars in the Inflation Reduction Act are all going to incentivize more EV production. And the problem is the dollars that would necessarily need to be spent extra on union labor now can be spent instead on quickening the transition to EVs. We're doing the second part of a climate change deep dive today. And my perspective is kind of that climate change is the end all be all. It's the White Walkers.
Yeah.
It's the biggest thing. So as important as keeping these jobs within unions are, I fret about thinking that we might decrease productivity by taking some of the money away from companies that otherwise would be better incentivized to produce more EVs?
I don't know. I don't think that it would be that related. Honestly, I don't.
No?
I think a very simple shift in the Inflation Reduction Act's language could be your tax credit for buying a electric vehicle is maybe $1,000. If it's a union-made electric vehicle, it's $1,400.
Okay.
You see what I mean?
Okay, so this is on the consumer end.
It's all on the consumer end.
Oh.
Yes. So the electric vehicle tax credits are on the consumer end.
Okay.
So when you go and buy an electric vehicle, your tax rebate, your tax refund is you get $1,000.
Sure.
So I'm saying if you buy a union vehicle, a union electric vehicle, it would be $1,400. But if you buy a Tesla that's not union made, you only get $1,000.
Okay. I think I'm cool with that.
So that's what I'm saying, where Biden could have done something a little differently. Now, this doesn't mean that the UAW is anti-Biden. This doesn't mean that they are super against Biden. They might be a little upset, but the UAW has made it very, very, very clear that they are not supportive of any type of Republican administration at all. So Donald Trump is trying to get some political headwind on this, and he's trying to make it seem like the electric vehicle scam is going to destroy the United Auto Workers, and that he's blaming the Biden administration for the transition to electric vehicles, and he's blaming that as the source of all the union's problems. That's not true. That's not what the union's demands are. The union's demands are not to keep gasoline vehicles. The United Auto Workers are actually very, very concerned about the stability and the sanctity of our environment. And they don't want to see it destroyed. They want to transition to electric vehicles. They want it to be a just transition. So when Trump comes out and he says that they're being sold down the drain by this electric car scam, this is Sean Fain's response. Every fiber of our union is being poured into fighting the billionaire class and an economy that enriches people like Donald Trump at the expense of the workers, Fain said. We can't keep electing billionaires and millionaires that don't have any understanding what it is like to live paycheck to paycheck and struggle to get by and expecting them to solve the problems of the working class. Where's this guy? Why doesn't he run for president?
Yeah.
What is this guy doing? Hey, Sean Fain, when you're done as your tenure as the United Auto Workers Union president,
Yeah.
go run for president, dude, please.
It really does not get much clearer than that. I think regarding Biden, he said this isn't about the president. So to me, the vibe I'm getting is he doesn't want either party to try to mooch off them, right? To try to take any credit for what happens. He's like, this is our thing. And the Biden administration has been trying to help, right? Julie Su, who I think is a member of the Department of Commerce.
No, she's the Secretary of Labor.
Secretary of Labor?
She's the acting Secretary of Labor.
Okay. He was planning on sending her there, but I read an article actually just this morning saying she hadn't made it into town.
So she's not going to the picket lines, but she is involved in the negotiation conversation. She's like a mediator right now.
Is she?
I've heard that she has been at least facilitating conversations. Yeah.
Okay. I don't know if she is or if she wants to be.
Oh, okay.
Is the thing. I don't know, because I know the Biden administration has offered their help in any ways that they can to move the conversations along, because another wrinkle of this is just how important the UAW is to the U.S. economy. There's an expectation that the economy could lose up to $5 billion if this strike goes for, I think, 4 weeks is the estimate. So the Biden administration has a big incentive to get these talks moving, to get this deal done. But I don't know if Sean Fain and his team really want their help.
Yeah, I mean, I like the idea of not making the labor strike political. Yeah. I agree with that. I think labor actions should be what they are, labor actions. The politicians who want to get involved and want to help and they want to be genuine about that help, please get involved. Grab a sign. Be like Bernie Sanders, who goes down and gives a speech with Sean Fain, right? Be like Ro Khanna, who walks the picket line. Don't virtue signal and act like you care about the plights of the working class and that you want to see these workers take on corporations, and then be like, I think they're asking for a little too much. Oh, they're just lazy. They don't want to work 5 days a week. Oh, they want to return to pension programs and step away from 401ks. That's a little selfish of them. You're not pro-union. Don't. Don't be disingenuous about it. Say it with your chest and say it proud. So that's what gets me mad with Donald Trump right now. And it gets me frustrated because he's trying to muddy the waters and make union workers think that he has their back when he never has and he never will. Sean Fain said it great, but Donald Trump appointed terrible people to the NLRB. He had an awful Secretary of Labor. He did nothing to beef up. Union elections were at an near an all-time low when Donald Trump was president because he handicapped the entire institution of the NLRB and how to operate elections. He is not an ally to unions, and now he's going to Detroit on September 27th to give a big speech in front of 500 union workers. And I can't wait to watch it because what can he say? He's not going to come out and support a 4-day work week. He's not going to come out and talk about the rising wages. He never talked about it once.
You know what he's going to say? He's going to say, I love unions. I was the best president ever for unions. I want you guys to win. He's going to give a bunch of vague platitudes, as he always does.
As he always does, and as he always will. And it makes me so frustrated because these unions are fighting for very, very specific things, right? They want, this is one of my favorite things, for retirement benefits, okay? Full-time hired after 2007, they get 401k accounts with a 6.7% company contribution. All workers before 2007 had a guaranteed pension program. They gave up a pension program in the 2008 recession. These workers gave up everything to keep Ford, GM, and Stellantis alive. They gave up everything. They gave up their secured retirement. And now they want to get that secured retirement back. But a lot of politicians don't care, and they make it very obvious they don't care. Tim Scott has come out and he said that he would follow Ronald Reagan's example and fire all of them and rehire everyone.
Wow.
Nikki Haley said that when you have a president like Joe Biden out there spitting unions, this is what you get. And she basically says the same thing as Tim Scott. Fire them all and rehire. That's what these Republicans want. So it's just so important that that veil is pulled down and that they can't hide from it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't want them to be able to hide from it.
Yes, they're very clearly anti-union.
Yes. And so what I love about this strike is that the way it's organized is brilliant. So they're doing this strategy called a stand-up strike. Now, what is a stand-up strike? This is where workers are called to walk out at specific locations and designated by their union rather than all members striking at once. So the union is picking specific locations around the country to strike at specific times so that they can either increase the amount of strikes over time and boost their leverage and keep the companies guessing on where they're going to pop up next. So right now there are striking in Missouri, Ohio, and Michigan. And in total, we're looking at 13,000 workers in the United States currently on strike. If all of the workers in the UAW went on strike, that would be 150,000 workers.
Wow.
That would be one of the biggest in the United States history. And now what's also cool about this is it's getting international solidarity.
Yeah.
So in Italy, I think it's Stellantis that has branches out in Italy, and workers at one of the suppliers there protested today a walk-off and walked off the job for 8 hours in protest because of the issues going on in the United States and internal transparency problems about new models that will be built in the factory. So we can see unions in Italy following after the UAW in the United States and showing solidarity there. Not just that, also in Canada, the Unifor, whatever, national president Alana Payne said in a video posted on the union's website that Ford needed to do more to meet members' expectations and demand. If there is a strike, this will be a total strike, she said, and every single one of Unifor's 5,600 members at Ford in Canada will be on the picket lines. So this could be coordinated over different countries now, which is awesome international solidarity among the working class. This is amazing.
Really cool.
And I like to imagine that they're all in communication, talking about how they're going to do this, right?
Oh, I'm sure they are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I love the idea of the stand-up strike because so many successful strike techniques end up becoming illegal. So a really strong example of one of this is the solidarity strike. So if a union goes on strike, back in the past, in the 30s and in the 20s, unions of other sectors would go on strike in support. So if the Teamsters went on strike, the UAW went on strike, not necessarily for their own contract demands, but to help the Teamsters get over the road too.
Okay.
Put the whole country in a spiral so that the presidents had to get involved.
Sure.
Now, you're not allowed to do that anymore. It's illegal. It's illegal in the U.S. So watch out in the next couple of years. Maybe stand-up strikes might be the next Republican hatchet job. They might come up after stand-up strikes if this proves to be successful.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to say about the UAW?
I don't think so. We covered the total economic potential effect.
It could put Michigan in a recession.
Effect.
If they go on total strike, we're talking about Michigan being in a recession, which is not something that I want. But what I like what Sean Fain said, he's like, we're not ruining the economy. We're ruining the billionaires' economy, right? We're ruining the way that billionaires make a ton of money. We're not wrecking our economy because it's not even ours because they're the ones soaking up all the profits.
Well, I don't know.
I don't really agree with that.
No, I don't think that's entirely true. It's still less money moving around in the economy.
Yes.
Like that's the point.
Yes.
It's a nice soundbite.
Right.
Yeah.
But you come to the show for more in-depth analysis, I guess, right?
Probably.
Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah.
Last thing I'll say on it is if you want to help the UAW, which I really hope you all do, go to the UAW.org website and sign the All In with the UAW petition on there and then share it on your social media. If you have a lot of balls, call 1-318-300-1249 to leave a message for the CEOs of Ford, GM, and Stellantis and tell them UAW members deserve the same 40% raises that they got over that they got over the last 4 years. And then go to UAW.org for the latest news on the fight to make things right at the big three. You can sign up for text things. I get texts whenever new negotiation things come on. So I recommend you all go do that to support.
Absolutely.
I've already made a couple phone calls, so you should too.
Nice.
There you go.
Yeah.